It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here this morning, as always. All right, are you ready? Here we go. We first start out with Karine Jean-Pierre. She made an appearance yesterday, in case you didn't hear. She is back. She's going to write a book. She's no longer going to be a Democrat. She's going to be an independent, but let her say it in her own words. All right.
Hi, I'm Karine Jean-Pierre, and I am the author of a new book that's coming out this fall called Independent. It's coming out on October 21st, so please do grab it. And the reason I wrote this book, coming out of the White House, serving as White House press secretary was an honor and a privilege. But since I have left, the people that come up to me, strangers that come up to me just across the country as I'm traveling, and sometimes right in my neighborhood, at a grocery store, supermarket, airport, my daughter's school, the number one question they ask me is, Karine, how do we get out of this? How do we protect our democracy? How do we protect vulnerable communities among us? What do we do next? Because we don't have answers here. That's what they ask me. And this is my answer. And what I mean by that is, in an era of misinformation, disinformation, the regressiveness of social policy, what we're seeing currently right now, what I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass. And that's what I've done. And that's what this book does. And here's the truth. And here's how I will lay it out to you. I think we need to stop thinking in boxes and think outside of our boxes and not be so partisan. And the way that I see moving forward in this space that we're in right now is, if you are willing to stand side by side with me, regardless of your how you identify politically, and as long as you respect the community that I belong to and vulnerable communities that I respect, I will be there with you. I will move forward with you. And that is, I think, so important. So this book, Independent, it's about looking outside of boxes, not just always being in a partisan stance. And how do we move forward together in a compassionate way, in a way that really, truly cares about people? October 21st.
Kumbaya, my Lord. Kumbaya.
Listen, why do we all have to be Republican, Kumbaya, Democrat? Can't we just be
Kumbaya? All right, before we comment, let us have Stephen A. Smith comment. This was the best audio of the day. Here we go.
You were not the White House press secretary when you showed up on ABC's The View a couple of months ago. You were talking major stuff then. You were not the White House press secretary. You were an American citizen who was not working in the White House. What the hell you go on the show for then? Bloviating about Joe Biden and how he was alert, and he was spry, and he was a great commander-in-chief, and he was sharp, and all of this stuff. I don't have the clip in front of me because I just saw the story. You're lucky I don't have time to pull it up. But I'm fully aware of the fact that you were not the White House press secretary when you were on The View spewing the same stuff you had spewed when you were the White House press secretary. So all bets are off. You didn't have to do that, but you chose to. Live with your decisions. Live with your decisions. You didn't have to do that, but that's what you chose to do. You chose to go front and center and still spew the same party line. So what the book's going to tell us? The book's going to tell us more about the Democrats. The book going to be an extension of Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book, Original Sin? Yet another Democrat coming out and telling us about stuff that a whole bunch of stuff on the right was telling us, but y'all swore we shouldn't listen to while y'all were engaging in cancel culture, while y'all were engaging in excoriating anybody that called the Democratic Party out for what the hell was going on.
Stephen A. Smith.
When he's right, he's right.
Oh, my gosh. I just love it. It's just
Isn't that crazy?
Absolutely.
If you go back 5 years, a few years, and say, Gary, if I said to you 5 years ago, Gary, in the year 2025, we're going to play a Stephen A. Smith cut and say, he's right.
No, that probably would not have happened.
You would have sent me home. You would have said, listen, you need to go see a doctor. Something is wrong.
Now, some of the fun comments. Scott Jennings on CNN. I can't even take any of this seriously. It's almost like, it's really, yesterday was almost a day when this story came out. It was, this is just strictly for my entertainment purposes only. This is just so I get a laugh. This is like turning on stand-up comedy or SNL when they used to be funny or whatever.
Yeah.
But here's Scott Jennings.
I agree with you. I don't think she will, although I would argue that it's pretty disloyal to leave the political party that, gave you your biggest career shot that you've ever had. But I tend to agree with you. I mean, I think the things we've learned in the last 2 years is that the two least credible sources of information in this world are the Gaza Health Ministry and Karine Jean-Pierre.
Also right. Scott Jennings, of course, we agree with 99.9% of the time. But he's right on.
That would be a question.
Yeah.
Who is more credible, Karine Jean-Pierre or Hamas?
Well,
who is more honest, Hamas or Karine Jean-Pierre?
The fact that I can't instantly give you the answer is disturbing.
Now, one of the things that you and I said, the way that she puts herself on a pedestal is if she's the arbiter of the truth, and she is the leader that will bring us all together, when she was the biggest partisan, pathological liar and considered probably the worst White House spokesperson ever. Let's go to, this is Outnumbered, and we played this earlier, but it's worth playing again. Ari Fleischer saying a lot of the same stuff that we did earlier.
I'm sorry, I just can't. She has no standing to call herself a nonpartisan, to come out against the people when she was the chief partisan. That's your job as the press secretary, to be a faithful advocate for the person you represent. And if you can't do it because you're too independent, you should resign in office in principle. So for her to come out and write a book like this, she is not left to join the independent party. She's left to join the Green Party, as in making money by promoting a book. Nothing wrong with that, but it's unprincipled. Don't pretend that you're above everybody else, that you're the independent, calling for people to stop fighting when all you did was fight from that podium on behalf of one of the worst presidents in history. So I don't think she has any standing to write a book like this, and I'm surprised, because I think she'd have done much better becoming a MSNBC political commentator than somebody pretending to write a book that sets herself apart as an independent, nonpartisan.
Now, Eric did challenge it. He said she may not be better on MSNBC.
Yeah, I don't know
The
about
way it's
that.
been going.
It's because Jen Psaki's numbers are down. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they were part of a big part, maybe the biggest part publicly, of the covering up of Joe Biden's cognitive issues. So
I love this here from Politico. The attention-grabbing ploy. That's from Politico. That's of her video. Lit up Democratic and Biden alumni texting groups and reignited frustrations that burned for years about Jean-Pierre, according to 7 former Biden administration officials granted anonymity to describe private conversations. One former official recalled that Jean-Pierre had joked about becoming an independent even while on the job in the Biden White House, an off-key comment for someone serving as a major messenger for the Democratic Party. Another former official said that Jean-Pierre began working during the Biden administration with the New York-based publicist and had copied that person on official emails with some of Jean-Pierre's white papers. Everyone thinks this is a grift. Ooh. Mm-hmm. One of the former officials said of Jean-Pierre's project, as Biden's press secretary, Jean-Pierre's halting, ineffectual briefings. This is Politico, by the way. Her halting, ineffectual briefings exasperated reporters and routinely offered material for the Republican Party's main account on X. It did. You know, the thing is, remember how we would wait in anticipation whenever she'd speak and be like, this is going to be great. We got,
Yeah.
You and I probably, for our almost 20 years together, which is next month, probably text more and said, show's done. After a press briefing, we'd text each other, show's done.
Yeah.
It's over. We got it. But it said she frustrated colleagues throughout the West Wing for focusing on raising her own profile while leaving the hands-on management of media relations and the White House press shop to other aides. While it's unclear how she will portray Biden or her time in the White House, in the book titled Independent, A Look at the Broken White House Outside the Party Lines, several former colleagues expressed confusion at how Jean-Pierre seemingly intends to paint Biden as a victim while pinning her own decision to leave the party on Biden's broken White House. Well, it doesn't have to make sense. She's a Democrat.
Yeah.
Well, the teasing of the book says that Jean-Pierre will offer her view of the 3 weeks of turmoil following Biden's miserable debate last summer. The book's promotional material blames in part him dropping out on a, quote, a betrayal by the Democratic Party, end of quote. Jean-Pierre's former staffers offered withering criticism of what they see as an opportunistic grift. She made a joke about being an independent last year, and now it's a book. All ideas are monetary, even the dumb ones, said one of the former staffers. A Democratic strategist who worked in the Commerce Department's communication shop during Biden's term also took issue with the book's apparent premise. Kamala Harris and the entire Biden-Harris campaign did hero's work to avoid losing 400 electoral votes and giving Republicans a supermajority in the Congress, which would have happened if he stayed on the ticket, she said. It's more productive to focus on that and thank Biden for doing a responsible thing by stepping aside than it is to pretend this was an unwarranted act of betrayal. Democrats said one Democratic consultant should shift their focus to the effects of Republicans' big, beautiful bill, which she said would have even been more drastic had Biden remained on the ticket and bolstered the GOP numbers in Congress, saying that the big, beautiful bill would even be worse if Biden had stayed in. So there you go. But tons of criticism. This is going to blow up. Because there's nobody. Democrats aren't going to agree with her. Republicans, and you and I asked the question, between now and October, I thought it was October 1st. It's like October 21st this book's supposed to come out. Mm-hmm. Is she in September going to start, or August, going to start on the book tours?
I would think so.
She's going to go on The View?
And certainly after it's released, the week it's released, she has to do a sit-down interview. I mean, I guess that would be with public access TV. I don't know who else would. who would want to. But but there will be that media tour. Here's the thing. Again, lack of self-awareness. She doesn't get it. And clearly the publisher doesn't get it. I don't think the publisher cares about the political effect on the party. But the political effect on the party will be real. And more chaos in the party and attention that was unnecessary. I mean, she needed to write a book because, what's she going to do for a living now? But you could have done My Life Story or something else that had nothing to do with it. It still wouldn't be much of an interest, but it would make sense. This one doesn't make any sense at all, and nobody was asking for it. And on top of that, it's only going to fuel the fire that's going on right now.
One of the biggest problems for her coming up next, 866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
A combination of weather factors should come together this week.
Kind of a complex situation. We've got elements coming in from Canada, elements coming in from the Eastern Pacific, all generating a rather active weather maker that will be drifting eastward over the next few days.
And USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says in terms of what this system might bring,
we can expect anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain over the next several days by the end of the week from the central and southern Great Plains through the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast.
More precipitation is expected from a second storm system entering the southern plains, moving eastward.
Kind of focused on Oklahoma and perhaps into portions of neighboring states. I would not be surprised to see some of those rainfall totals by the end of the week getting up in the 2 to 6 inch range there, and that could lead to some flash flooding. Also the potential for some severe thunderstorms as this cold front very slowly slides its way through the southern and central plains and the mid-south over the next several days.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The one, when I sit there and look at the Karine Jean-Pierre problem, the thing that just, came right out at me was, well, wait a minute. It seems like she's going to say Biden was fine. The Democratic Party screwed him over. Biden was fine because she's saying the Democratic Party betrayed him. Which means she's trying to
shouldn't have done that.
They shouldn't have done that.
Which means there was no reason to do that.
Right. Which means it seems like she's going to communicate that Biden was fine, as she's trying to tell everybody that I want you to join me in being an independent, while she's also communicating that she's the biggest gaslighter still. She's gaslighting to defend her gaslighting.
Well, this is the thing. We've seen this with the liberal activist media in the way that Jake Tapper handled the whole thing. He was fighting with Laura Trump, one moment, and then writing a book, a tell-all book that he started the day after the election. He said that. And so it's this weird mea culpa. So for her, here's what it appears. There was nothing wrong with him, but I don't want you to think that I covered up for him. Right. Covered up what? Nothing. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, but I'm an independent. Right. But you worked for a Democrat president. Yeah, but I'm an independent. I didn't work for him. Well, why? Was there something wrong with him? No, there was nothing wrong with him. So she's trying to have it both ways. This weird mea culpa, separate herself from Biden in some way, and also recognize what happened.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's our Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. I found this audio from Mark Halprin. I don't know what they're. Let me see. Okay, they bring up the racial thing. I mean, he's a former Mark Halprin, Democrat, whatever. But he says there's no doubt that part of the heat she got was because she's not a white man. I don't even know what that means. She was what? But let's just play it because he makes other points. Here it is.
There's no doubt that part of the heat she got was because she's not a white man. Anyone who would argue against that is ridiculous. But I would argue that had she been a white man, she would have been laughed at as the worst White House press secretary in years. She was horrible at the job. She shouldn't have accepted it when she was offered. She should have had the self-awareness to say, I'm just not qualified to do this job. And the people who offered her the job, including the president, should be ashamed for themselves and apologize to her for asking her to take a job she was patently not qualified for. Okay? And I will say, I see in the press coverage today, lots of news organizations writing, well, she was in over her head, right? And quoting people saying that. You will not find that because they all protected her when she was the press secretary. They rarely wrote about it. And the drama that they all knew about with what's his name? The national security guy.
Jake Sullivan?
No.
John Kirby.
John Kirby.
Oh, John Kirby.
John Kirby, who she wouldn't let brief, although sometimes he did, because she couldn't do the national security briefings. Again, I'm not saying she's a bad person. I'm not saying she's not qualified for any job. She's not qualified for the job she had. And today, just as the press is suddenly saying what was apparent to everyone, that Joe Biden had too much of a loss of cognitive decline to be president. Now they're happy to say that, covered it up the whole administration. Same thing with her. Now they're happy to say, well, lots of people didn't think she was up for the job. Back then, they acted like she was Mike McCurry and Ari Fleischer rolled into one. I mean, it is shameful. And I would love to know how many books they're printing because they're going to be returning almost all of them. I can't imagine who the constituency is, as you said.
Yeah, I do want to address what he said at the beginning. Look, she got the heat, and because she wasn't a white man, and anyone arguing that is, ridiculous or whatever he said. That's false. And I'll say this. If Condaleeza Rice, this would be far below her skill level, but if she had been a spokesperson, a White House press secretary, would have been likely one of the best, if not the best ever. It's, playing this identity game, Halprin, is lame.
Yeah.
And then he tried to play both sides of that. But, people basically, some were afraid to call her out on it because she wasn't a white male. Well, but she was horrible at her job, and it doesn't matter what her skin color is or the fact that she is a she. None of that matters. What matters is she good at her job? That's it. So it just, Halprin has made some good points and did during the political season and since. But get off this thing with the identity politics, man.
I know.
It just doesn't.
Maybe he thinks
work.
that.
No, I think he does. I think he's, of course, that's how he thinks. And in what you're doing now, Mr. Halprin, it doesn't work. It doesn't float because you're floating otherwise and having discussions with people and about people. Those discussions have been fairly thorough and certainly worth listening to or watching. But when you bring that into it, it's like you're throwing out your critical thinking and you're showing your very liberal side. He is a liberal, so.
You mentioned Condis Rice. She warned that Russian President Putin has grown more out of control, arguing he is desperate to eradicate Ukraine. Rice was asked about reports of Ukraine striking a bridge leaking Crimea. You saw that. You saw that video, right?
Right.
And Russia in a series of underwater explosions. Rice called the attack extraordinary, Well, and she was on Fox and Friends saying it shows Ukraine can hold Putin accountable for his aggression. It shows a couple of things. First, the changing nature of warfare, that you can do this with relatively cheap drones against the Russian strategic air fleet, which has cost billions and billions of dollars. Secondly, it shows that the Ukrainians are very advanced in what they are doing in their defense industry with the building of these drones and the employment strategy for them. And third, it is an incredible intelligence coup. Vladimir Putin is undoubtedly now wondering whether there was an inside job. You're probably going to see a witch hunt in Russia as he tries to figure out who did this inside. So it just shows that just with a little bit of help, Ukrainians can make Vladimir Putin pay for their aggression. The massive underwater blast targeting a bridge linking Russia to Crimea left it in a state of emergency Tuesday, according to the Ukrainian Security Service. The SBU said it detonated around 2,500 pounds of underwater explosives along the bridge. Footage showed a blast centered around one of the bridge pillars, following by people surveying the damage on top of the bridge. They're not saying she was. I got the point. I thought she was saying that explosion was caused by drones. I thought it was underwater explosives too.
Yeah, that's what I got.
I don't. So I don't know. I didn't see how that attack possibly happened. But you see right now. I mean, you see, Trump. You see the Senate now coming in saying, okay, the Senate, they're going to come up with a bill to really sanction Putin.
Mm-hmm.
Will the House will probably get it through the House if they do that, and will the president sign it and then do it? You're coming to crunch time both on Iran and Russia with the president.
Yeah,
and with the administration, decisions eventually are going to have to be made, and they're tough decisions. And yesterday, clearly when I heard him talking, he's trying to still play, nice guy with Putin and Xi in China. And I'm, by the way, I'm not criticizing it yet. I'm simply saying he's still playing nice guy. I think he is. That's the impression that I got when obviously now you're at the point, and maybe I come to it a couple of weeks, months, years before he does, but never trusted Putin to begin with. I could care less whether he likes me. It's all BS. Whether he likes me, whether I get along, I could care less. It's whether I believe and my intelligence tells me that he actually wishes to make a deal, or whether he wishes war to go on. Same with Xi. I don't care whether you like Xi or not. It is, what is his intentions? End of story. And I just think that he continues to say that. Now, if he comes out with a deal, then you can look at it and go, okay, he was massaging the right parts of their personality. If it doesn't, it makes the United States look weak.
The Wall Street Journal reports that the guy in charge, Malyuk, there in Ukraine, who was part of this, the central part of this and planner of these attacks, actually used a truck bomb for that bridge attack, the Kerch Bridge. So that was a truck bomb.
It was underwater.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. But I don't know if, again, is it? It looks like in the video, it's just a video that's in a loop. I don't know if that truck went into the water. So I don't know. But that's according to the Wall Street Journal.
Unless the video I saw, I didn't see the entire explosion. If it was truck and
right,
an underwater explosion.
Yeah, I'm trying to, because it's a really short video. It just keeps the version they have at the Wall Street Journal. It just keeps looping. But that's according to the story. The use of a truck bomb to damage the Kerch Bridge between mainland Russia and occupied Crimea. And he also was part of unless they're referring to, was there another bridge attack in the past? That may be the case. I don't know. I can't remember. But he was also a part of the assassinations deep in Russian territory. We saw those, including the killing of a general with an exploding scooter as well as a bomb hidden in a statuette to kill a prominent war blogger. But the conversation that the president says he had with Putin, he says they did discuss Iran, and they both agreed that Iran can't have nukes. Again, you can't trust anything that this, because I'm thinking to myself, well, it's blah, 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 Putin, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter what Putin says about it, on that. It's about what's going to happen, and then the president came away with that, telling the media, there's not going to be an immediate peace deal, essentially. Gathering from the conversation, Putin's telling me, he's going to have to retaliate for Ukraine's attacks. So it doesn't look like there's going to be anything that leads to an immediate peace deal. Well,
that's why I said sanctions are coming next from the Senate.
The Senate's been chomping at the bit on this.
Right.
They've been wanting to do this for a while, and I think the president's been keeping them at bay, saying, look, let me work on, talks here, but they really want to get this thing done. And that's it. How long do you let it go? Because if you come away, if that's your takeaway, and he tells it to the media, that his big takeaway, or at least what was really widely reported from that phone call, it was a pretty long phone call with Putin, is that he's going to have to retaliate against Ukraine. Well, okay. What does that look like? How long are you going to let this go on before you let the Senate move on sanctions?
I had thought, because I said it, I thought the missile attack that killed like a dozen people.
You're right.
Remember the biggest missile attacks? I thought that was a retaliation.
That's what I thought.
I thought about that yesterday, and I didn't see that in any story. And did anybody ask the question, wasn't that the retaliation?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
All right, what's going on?
I don't know.
Trump's he's gone quiet there. He's gone quiet against Elon Musk.
Well,
it's pretty quiet still on Gaza and Iran. He's gone quiet. What's going on?
Because if you look at this Trojan horse style attack with the drones, and that were hidden inside these cabins, and then unbeknownst to the truck drivers who were hauling them, they were filled with these drones that were ready to attack. I mean, this was a pretty massive operation, thousands of miles deep into Russian territory. Well, it reeks of having help from outside intel. I don't know if that's the U.S. I don't know if it's Europe. I don't know who it is. Ukraine's been planning this for a year and a half. It's been, they've been really working on this for a year and a half. And Ukraine does have their own intel, but they need the assist. They don't have the technology and means of gathering that intel like the global intel community, of course. They just don't have that scale. So that's what makes me think of that. But it was an impressive attack and how it was carried out. The question is, what does Putin do next, and how far do you let him go before you let the Senate act on sanctions here?
86690 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. That story yesterday, we'll get more on this. The phone records show that the Columbia protester, self-proclaimed Jew hater, had direct link to Hamas. You saw that story out there.
Yeah.
That's just going to destroy anything that the Democrats are attempting to defend in any way.
Yep.
Illegal immigration.
Yep.
It's just going to destroy it. The public already knows of this one. I mean, this was a story yesterday, and that the Republicans are going to pound on this and saying, look, these this protesters, because remember, that was the other story that they've talked about and the administration's pushing, which is true. It's like, no, what do you mean? Hamas is saying, no, we've got an organization that communicates with people in the United States. That was 2 days ago.
Yep.
And then, boom, this story comes out the next day, and it's lining it all out, and the American people are going to go to hell with that. Democrats, stop it.
Right. Yep.
Stop on this narrative.
Exactly.
You're not going to win this.
Right.
And why are you trying to defend this?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.